Today, our presenter is Jeremy Young from Huntress Labs. And you can see up on the screen, we've got the future webinars coming out. We're looking at adding a Microsoft Teams and Office 365 webinar into September. So stay tuned for that. You can also find all the schedule of our webinars on the Next IT website. And there's an events tab at the top of that. Click on the events tab, and you can find registration and webinar information there at any time. A couple of housekeeping notes. We have audio and video turned off for all the participants, and you can ask questions in the question and answer session. We'll get to that at the end of the presentation. And then we could talk about a free offer if you want to learn more about the security from Huntress Labs. And from that, I will hand it off to you, Jeremy.
Thanks, John. And I'll be quick, get up and down so we can get right to the questions and answers, which is more fun for everyone. So be sure, I move pretty quick, but throw your Q&As in the Q&A there and we'll get to them. So my name is Jeremy Young. I'm a security specialist at Huntress Labs, and Next IT partners with us as a part of their overall managed services offering. And so we'll talk about a little about the landscape of what's going on today, some threats that are out there, a little bit about what we do and how you can partner with Next IT to make sure you're covered. So let's start with a simple fact. The vast majority of small businesses outsource their IT, whether it's to the IT guy down the street or an IT service professional provider like Next IT. SMBs have been outsourcing IT for a long time. Now let's hop in the Wayback Machine and look at 2005. Turns out 2005 was a really important year in IT. This is the year that Microsoft first shipped Windows with antivirus and firewall included. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. It's just the first time that Microsoft baked into their operating system what were previously third-party security solutions. Kind of like how car makers nowadays build in all the cameras and sensors that used to be aftermarket add-ons. It is Thursday after all, so let's have a little fun. Look at some things, other things from 2005 that were popular. Top cell phones were like the Nokia candy bar phone, Motorola Razr. I know I missed some of those phones. They were indestructible. Back in that day, you could get a piece of Amazon stock or one piece of Amazon stock for 39 bucks, which means you could get about 100 shares for the same cost as an LCD TV. It's only 30 inches, right? I know the better ROI long-term from that. YouTube was founded that year. Facebook was only 1 year old, still limited to a few colleges and universities. And all of that is to say that the world of technology has changed overwhelmingly since then. Look at how we're interacting right now, for example. But for most of us in the SMB space over the last 15 years, and sometimes even up until now, IT security meant firewalls and antivirus. Starting around 2017, our world changed, whether we realized it or not. SMBs weren't on the target map before 2017 for most attackers. But their eye turned towards us and discovered that small and medium businesses are totally wide open for exploit. It was like the digital Alaskan gold rush. Word spread, and we continue to see SMBs now be one of the primary targets of attackers. Why this new focus? Well, in a word, ransomware. Attackers have built entire economies around this on the dark web, and it's big business, estimated over $11.9 billion in 2019 alone. Overall, attacks and payouts are ever increasing, but you don't just get ransomware, right? There are usually many precursors to threats like this, different stages of the attack process, and these have also evolved over time. And now I totally understand that there are plenty of other threats out there in addition to ransomware, but this is a really great example because it's very well known, widely covered in the media, for example. So let's look at an example attacker journey. First step is how I, as a hacker, gain initial access. This is most often through getting a user to click on a link they shouldn't have in an email, for example. But there are thousands of ways to get initial access to a system. This stage usually gets a lot of emphasis in the media, even though ultimately it doesn't really matter how someone gets in. It matters what happens afterwards. So everyone's step two is persistent access. And this is arguably the most important part because this is where they abuse trusted parts of the operating system to silently retain control over that device. Once this is done, the rest is just a matter of time. And this is the layer that Huntress actually focuses on to stop this process in its tracks. After they're comfortably in control in the background, they usually just dwell on your systems, sometimes for weeks, months, even years. The average is over 100 days. You guys remember that Equifax breach a while ago? Forensics later uncovered attackers were in their systems for 141 days before this theft happened and had been discovered. Huntress helps discover these persistent attacks in minutes and hours, not weeks and months. Attackers then use all of that time to develop the perfect exploit from all the information they've gathered on your organization, which eventually leads to the second part that we hear about in the media, that payload drop. This is where files get stolen and sold on the dark web or encrypted and held for ransom or other nefarious objectives. The world of technology has changed in so many ways, but 15 years later, it's still firewalls and antivirus for most of us in the SMB space when it comes to security. What we're really doing is sending our IT partners into a gunfight, not even armed with a knife, but with a magic wand, right? Good security can't be magic. Let's talk about why security software alone isn't enough to keep us safe in today's threat landscape. AV by its, oh my gosh, guys, this is embarrassing. I am so sorry. I have to restart my computer. Just kidding. Anybody ever had a screen like this before? It's the fabled blue screen of death. It's been terrorizing Windows users since day one. This screen happens when something failed. It can commonly happen after an update, after you install new software. Just like when you get into your car and turn the ignition key, there's a series of processes that begins and that culminates in a running engine. When you turn on your computer, there are hundreds of auto-starting processes and components of Windows that come alive in sequence to culminate in your PC booting up and running. If any one of those is missing or corrupted, you might get that blue screen of death. Now, imagine your amazing IT team installs the latest and greatest security software and they get that blue screen of death. What do you think they're going to do in that scenario? They're going to uninstall that software immediately and probably never use it again. So the makers of security software have to ignore these Windows components for fear of breaking Windows. App developers know this, but unfortunately, so do attackers. Hackers are amazing at using valid sites and programs against us. This is commonly known as social engineering, application abuse, etc. Now, I'm not sure if any of you guys had the chance to see this, but we've seen a notice recently. This is stuff from just in March 20th, as you see there. Notice from the Department of Justice, Attorney General William Barr, asking all of us to report incidents of fraud, including cyber attacks. Specifically, phishing is on the rise. By now, you've all seen these emails encouraging users to click on the link to get more COVID-19 related content, right? Beginning of March or late March, beginning of April, our inboxes were flooded with a bunch of, and still to this day, with a bunch of COVID-19 related information about the latest news and latest changes in what's going on. Some of these phishing emails are posing as the WHO or the CDC, preying on the uncertainty and stress caused by the pandemic. This is such a huge issue that even the Department of Justice discussing and warning it with the community, right? What did we see just 2 days later after that announcement? A pretty sophisticated attack on hhs.gov. This was a phishing email providing COVID info, the link directing users to HHS. Even if you were super diligent and hovered over that link, you'd see that it was still actually an hhs.gov domain. So you'd probably be like, oh yeah, that's legit, I'll click on it. In the background, attackers had also taken advantage of a vulnerability in the hhs.gov website that allowed them to create an open redirect. And that's what you see in red there. The redirect led to downloading information stealers made to scam credit cards, credentials, steal browser data, etc. This took down the hhs.gov website for quite a while. I think it actually might still be down. We are past the days of an easy to spot phish. This is an example from March 4th, super early in the US pandemic, very professional reproduction of CDC resources that led to credential stealing if you follow the links. Totally opportunistic, right? Attackers are also targeting the media focus around a shortage of personal protective equipment. Scammers get your phone number in any number of ways, then send out text to offer free PPE posing as the Red Cross. Following the link, victims are asked to pay a delivery fee, providing the credit card info. The stolen credit card information is real. The free PPE, of course, is not. And it's not just spray and pray attacks either. Here we see an example of an attacker sending an internal email from a email account that's been taken over. Please view our COVID office plan. That's probably something that I'd be interested in, right? If I went to an office every day. The attachment request then steals Office 365 credentials when you go to the link. And they create a really good look. Like, I would think that's the right login, but actually it's a fake login. It's called a spearfish. And so let's take a look at an example of how quickly this can happen. So a quick little video. Here we see the FBI is warning about COVID-19 related themed scams and phishing emails. That's on March 20th, right? So just a couple months ago. And March 21st, hackers attack ransomware payloads in phishing emails. We see that this is another email that is pretending to be the public health department. The attachment includes a VBS that if you download and if you just run it, and if I'm in a browser and if I download this, it's just going to pop up at the bottom of my browser, right? And I'm just going to click it because I want to run. I want to see what the information they're providing. Under the hood, what it does is creates a temporary folder. So it creates this little executable in a temporary folder that's in a part of a system folder that you'd never go to as an actual user. And when it runs, all files get encrypted immediately. But at least they leave you a note letting you know that, hey, it's not personal. This is really just business. So this is what we'd refer to as like a spray and pray ransomware attack. It's not strategic. They're just hoping to catch somebody off guard. And the next thing they're going to do, of course, is say, send me Bitcoin. If you see anything like this, report it. And you can take a screenshot of this. This is the real number to how to report it. And disaster@leo.gov is a real domain. I had to look it up to make sure leo.gov wasn't a misdirection either. But yeah, make sure if you see anything like this, please report it, because really security is a team sport. We need everybody's involvement to keep the whole community safe. Attackers use these same tactics with valid components of Windows to establish these persistence footholds. Now, I'm not expecting you to know what any of this stuff is, but it appears to be a completely normal Windows component. Under the hood, attackers use these valid Windows components in a series to attack Windows and maintain persistent access to them in the background. This is what's referred to as a fileless malware attack. All of these things highlighted are valid Windows components, but which means none of your security software is going to stop them, but it's obviously shady to a Huntress human being on our security team. These NextIT partners with us to provide this granular level of security, but they need your help. As I said, security is a team sport, and they need you on their side to have a fighting chance. Preventative security is absolutely necessary. We need all of the tools, but all the tools have their limitations because of what they're specifically designed to look for. It's software. Even those with AI, really cool, still software. The end result is if you make a smaller net, an attacker will make a smaller fish to get through the holes. We hunt the fish that get through the net. Our threat ops engineers are researching data on your computers that other tools simply aren't. Sometimes the best tool with preventative medicine, for example, is early detection. Catching a disease at stage 1 is very different than catching a disease at stage 4. Many IT service providers don't focus on security like they should. However, NextIT cares enough about your security to mandate Huntress as one of the tools in their standard offering to protect your systems. So John, Don, let's discuss how that looks in your offering.
Sure. You want to just, there we go. We've got our contact information here. And what we've prepared for today is we could set you up with a 30-day trial of running this security software on your systems. You'll either have to get a hold of Don or I, as it's not something that we can easily just hand out in an email. We'll coordinate with you and identify how to implement our free trial offer. I work out of the Traverse City
John,
office.
you want to
John Sohaki, and then Don Spire is out of our Muskegon office in the Southern Territory. So if you're familiar with one of us, contact that, or you can contact the website as well, and we'll get right back to you.
why don't you guys put your emails in the chat, John?
Sure, I can do that. And then let's go to question and answers. Don, we've got some question and answers lined up for Jeremy.
Yeah, we do have a few questions here. First one is, if I use this, can I get rid of my antivirus?
Good question. So preventative security it's a layered approach, and antivirus is absolutely one of those layers you still have and keep. Huntress does a very different thing than an antivirus. Both have an endpoint agent component, but antivirus looks at files and behavior and scans things as they happen, as they come onto the machine, as they get open, and their objective is to stop something that they see as bad. But they have to make lightning quick decisions. And as we saw in that example, when the decision is based on a Windows component, when the attackers are using a valid component of Windows as a part of their attack, it's almost impossible for them to be right every time, because if they're wrong once, if AV is wrong once, it's going to cause that blue screen of death. So a lot of times it just fails open, right? It's either fail safe and kill everything, or fail open and let some things slip through that are pretending to be valid parts of Windows because they want self-preservation, right? They don't want to kill your machine and then have you uninstall their tool. Their first objective is self-preservation. And so that's how these threats get through. Our agent actually just takes a look at the data of the digital fingerprint of those files so we can tell on the back end, this actually isn't what it's reported to be doing. And so we simply can see that on our back end, but it's complementary to antivirus. It is not a replacement for. The best security is multiple layers, and we are just one of those layers, in addition to antivirus being a preventative layer. We are more a detect and respond after your preventative stack fails.
Right.
And reminder to participants, if you click on the Q&A button in your Zoom bar, you can throw a question out there if you have one.
I did have one more question here. Do I install the agent on my server or on the workstations?
Yeah, good question. So we are Windows only at this point, and you can put it on pretty much any Windows device. So laptops, desktops, servers, anything newer than 2008 R2 on the server side, and anything newer than I think Windows 7, one of the newer service packs on Windows 7, I believe. But yeah, any current operating system version, currently supported operating system version of Windows, whether it's server or endpoint, you can use Huntress on.
Okay. So we had one more. Do we get live warnings?
Yes, the output that we would provide, and we provide these to your partner. So NextIT sees these as when we see something, we say something, and we send them the information on what we found and how to remove it. And they had that value add, take our information and go in, because they already have the remote hands into your environment, and they actually perform that remediation on your behalf. So basically, it's a partnership between you guys, NextIT, and us, as really just kind of adding the security researcher arm to the team to be able to find these things. And then NextIT does the actual dirty work of getting them off your systems in a timely manner. And we take those scans every 15 minutes and we report anytime we see something. So it's a pretty constantly running system.
Right. Yeah, that's looks like that's all of the questions that we have for today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys very much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Appreciate your time today, Jeremy. And thank you for the attendees. We'll give you a couple minutes back in your morning, but please check out the NextIT website and our events page for future webinars on cybersecurity and how to best protect your data. Again, thanks. Signing off for Don, Jeremy, and myself, John. NextIT webinar. Appreciate your time today.
Enjoy your holiday weekend, everyone. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.